Okay, so state your name and role and where you're from and your role in the Richmond music scene.
Okay, so my name is Samuel. Do you want my last name too?
Sure.
So Samuel Ghali. I go by Sam. I'm from Midlothian, specifically like Brandon Mill area. I am a avid concert goer, house show goer, and also a radio show host. Do I look at the camera or do I look at you?
Either or.
Okay. Okay, good.
Um, so how did you get introduced into the Richmond music scene?
Ooh. Okay. Um. So I think a large portion of my music taste and like not my music taste, but like my music experience has been credited by like my friend that I've made since coming to Richmond named Zach Zabetis. Like we both have similar music taste, but I just wasn't really someone who like super avid about going to concerts and stuff like that until I met Zach. And so Zach was like, Zach was just someone who was like, oh, like I'm really into concerts. Like we both listen to the same music, and so Zach and my friend Henry too. Like Zach took us like a bunch of like different shows and different concerts, specifically like in the hardcore and like hard rock genres and like emo too. So we got like really into that. And that's like, and then like Zach this year, Zach had like hosted a radio show in the past before they went abroad, and then when he got back, he was like, "Oh, like I want to host a show with somebody else." And like, so me and Zach host a talk show together now. But yeah, that's how I got involved. But yeah, before that, I was just sort of like a music enjoyer, like an avid music enjoyer. Like I consistently hit like 120 minutes in high school. So
How did Zach get kind of introduced into the hardcore Richmond music scene?
both Zach and I like, because I think we got introduced into it at the, well, like we got introduced to the genre of hardcore I like around like the same time. Like we both just listened to like we started off listening to like lots of Queens of the Stone Age, and then like progressively we found like different sort of like post punk artists, and then from there we found like different sort of hard rock and fifth wave emo bands, and then that all sort of coalesced when we started going to like smaller venues. Like I think the first venue that we went to where we like actually started meeting people that take us like different shows and stuff like that was Spirit at the Beehive, like because I think Zach and I are people who present ourselves as like very like high energy, and like we also just have like I don't know so Zach especially like somehow people just want to like be friends with Zach. Like Zach just attracts people. So like when we went to Spirit of the Beehive, like people had like come up to us and be like, oh, like go to shows, let's do shows and stuff like that. So that's kind of the gist on how that happened. But
So basically, friend of a friend, word of mouth.
yeah, kind of. And also like I feel as if the scene is pretty inclusive if you like
Mhm.
show that you're someone who's like willing to talk and willing to open yourself up to it. Like it's not one that shies away from anything. So yeah.
Would you say the Richmond music scene is inclusive to everyone, regardless of race, age, gender, anything like that?
Yeah, I would say so. But also like I have to be honest and say like I think like when we refer to like a scene, I don't think like there's like a community that's like certainly built into it. Like there are
Yeah.
good people at concerts and there are bad. Like Father John Misty is a concert I went to, and like the community there, like the crowd there was like the worst like ever. Like
Hmm.
I despised it, and I don't think that they were like really accepting or really open to like different sort of identities and like different sort of like attitudes, and like if you were neurodivergent at concert, you'd probably stand out. But like at the same time though, like, there are concerts and like things that happen at smaller venues that are like just way more accepting and way more like oh like you can be like you can do whatever you need to just to sort of like fit in and vibe.
Yeah.
Um, but interestingly enough, I don't think I really have as much experience with the Richmond music scene as I do with like London's music scene though.
Hmm.
But still, at the same time, the concerts I have been in Richmond have been pretty good, and the people here have been like pretty like accepting, and like they're just like all like they're about the energy, I guess. Like if you
Yeah.
come in with energy, like most people just appreciate you. But I also I also I will say like I can't say that definitively because like I haven't like been as involved with the Richmond music scene as I have while I was like abroad, like because COVID for one,
Yeah.
and also because like I studied abroad for a full year, and like Zach studied abroad for like half, or half a year. So like a lot of our experiences over there. But yeah, from like what I can tell, like artists that have visited Richmond and like the different sort of like niches that have been represented in Richmond have been good. They've been nice. They've been sweet. Yeah.
Pretty
So,
chill scene.
yeah, pretty chill scene. As far as I can tell, yeah, pretty good.
Can you tell me more about your radio show?
Yeah, totally. So Zach and I have a radio show called We Listen to What? And that was, we kind of stole the title of our show from like this junior who had just transferred in to Richmond. And her name is Anne. And she was just like, oh, like, Zach and I were trying to think of a name of the radio show. And like, she just like was like, oh, like, you should name it We Listen to What? And we're like, oh, like, we're doing that. So, like, we just took that name and we just sort of went with it. But basically, like, our show is just sort of a recap of everything that we'd sort of been listening to for the past week. As long as it doesn't have curse words, which is a little bit annoying, but because, like, a lot of our music does have curse words and we just don't really pay as much attention to it. So, like, we like, have to, like, do, like, a huge, like, recap on all the songs that we wanted to play and, like, see if they have curse words in there or not before playing on the radio. And sometimes we miss, and sometimes there's just curse words just blaring through the radio nonstop. But yeah, so like our genre, I guess, focus is always like alternative, queer / indie pop, alternative rock, hard rock. We have some screamo, we have lots of emo. I sometimes play like jazz. It's kind of just like all over the place, which is just like whatever we're feeling. I'd say like the biggest genres though is definitely like emo, indie rock, and hard rock are probably like the biggest ones that I think that we sort of tend towards. But yeah, it's just like Zach and I being kind of goofy and like we sort of preface every single show with like, oh, like Zach has like undiagnosed ADHD. Well, Zach has diagnosed ADHD, and I probably am tending towards maybe believing that I have ADHD. I'm not diagnosed yet, but so like we preface like every show being like, oh, like it's gonna be chaos, like it's gonna be, and like literally we've had shows where we've just been like, oh, like we're just gonna play whatever we can, like we're just gonna try to make the people in ETC like walking by THC's ears bleed. So like people like, because like I don't know why, but the radio show plays through the radio, or the radio show plays through the radio and the speakers in THC. So like we just like the idea of like people walking through THC and having to listen to like, I don't know, like Death Grips or something. Like it's just funny to us. But yeah, I guess like if there's any like hardcore fans out there, I guess like we sort of like try to fit that niche at Richmond, because I don't think that's like a big thing at like the University of Richmond, at least. I think like outside of the University of Richmond, like I have friends from high school who are like really into hardcore stuff, and like go to house shows. But I think the majority of them have moved to Nashville because I think there's like a bigger scene there for that.
Yeah.
But.
And I mean, we talked about this a little bit before, but when we looked at the like music census that my class did last year, I mean, kind of the genres you're hitting were actually really common in the Richmond scene, like indie, punk, hip hop, like hardcore kind of music. So I think it's a little interesting that, you know, you're at the University of Richmond doing this kind of music when, you know, it's university versus the city. So like, how do you think the music scene for the university kind of differs from the city itself? Yeah,
that's a great question. Yeah, Zach and I have genuinely had conversations about this kind of frustratingly. Like a lot of the concerts that we go to, we don't see anybody from the University of Richmond.
Yeah.
It's like kind of sad, but like we've also talked about it quite a bit because we're like I think Zach and I definitely like a big point of our social life comes from music, or at least it revolves a little bit around music. And so like one of the things that we talk about a lot is like, oh, like where are the hardcore fans at Richmond? Like we just don't, like there's just not, that's just not present when we know it's like a genre that is big, and we know that there are people who do listen to it a ton and do enjoy it, but like it's just not present here. It's just not that present at Richmond. Like even like with like the alternative like kids here, like sometimes you're just like, oh, like do listen, like even like Idols, I feel like is like a name that nobody has like really heard here. And Idols is like a huge like hard rock band from the UK, and yeah, like it's like interesting sort of like, yeah, it's interesting because like that is a scene in Richmond, and obviously like I think like the DMV area in general, like up north as well, like it is like a scene that is present, and is a scene that's like very prevalent. That's just not as like, just not as represented here at Richmond. Like I don't know why that's the case, but like I know like Zach and I sort of had to like fight. No, I don't want to use that word, but like we did have to like it was like one of those things that we just had to like sort of like, I don't know, like our music is kind of just like shuffled into ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are you kind of saying like you guys accept that while you are part of the broader scene in this sort of niche space, you're not the scene, if that makes sense?
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay. I don't really know. Like, I think like we had a conversation recently where we were like, oh, like what is like the University of Richmond's music taste?
Yeah.
And that was like actually hard to figure out. Like we were like, oh, like I think it's like maybe classic rock or like frat party music or like general 2000s pop. Like I don't know, like music that they would play at like Shanae's. I've never been to Shanae's, but like from what I understand, like it's just like the type of music that you can hear. But like not really many people listen to like Dorian Electra or even like 100 Gex, which is like kind of weird. You don't like 100 Gex?
No, I'm saying, but like I understand what you mean about, you know, not understanding like what is the music taste here.
Yeah.
Why do you think you feel so much more tapped into the city music, but not the university music, despite being at the university? Like, what do you think that divide is coming from?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the University of Richmond definitely has like a big separationist attitude, I think, from, and it's kind of because it, like I think it has to, and I'm gonna get kind of political here, but like, actually, are you cool with me? Okay, cool.
Of course.
Like I do think that like, and again, this is like all hypothesis. Like this may not be true. Like there could be like people who come to the school from like Massachusetts who are like really well off. Like Zach, Massachusetts, like well off. Like he doesn't have to stress about money. He came to Richmond and he like definitely got involved into like the Richmond scene as a whole and like the Richmond experience, and he definitely like allowed himself to explore genres that were fascinating to him and things that like stuck out to him. But I think like genuinely here, maybe it's like a part of it's like, oh, like being neurodivergent maybe has something to do with it, because like that is a possibility, but also it could just be like, oh, like it's just like Richmond has a certain culture, like the University of Richmond has a certain culture that I think is like revolves around like wealth, old white culture that like Richmond the city like has, of course, because like Tuckahoe and Henrico exist. Yeah. But like there is also like a very strong alternative scene here. Yeah. And a lot more people who I guess reject like the white supremacist narrative that I guess, and I'm using white supremacist narratives in like, I think like the culture at Richmond is white, and therefore like a lot of its ideology comes from white ideology, and a lot of that is ideology held in like neurotypicality and like heterosexuality and like, I don't know, like whiteness in general and all like the colonial ideas and like old Christian Orthodox beliefs and whatnot that like the Richmond scene in general, like Richmond in general has like, there are people that just reject that. I think that's like pretty common. Like even like something, a place like Carytown, which is like not that alternative, but like it definitely marks itself up to be. Yeah. So yeah, I think like it's a small city, but like it's one that has like, I guess like budding alternative vibes, as in like most cities, except for like DC maybe, because I like making fun of DC. But that's like, that's a gist.
And I mean, if you look at the origins of a lot of the genres that you've kind of hit on, you know, punk, indie, hardcore, rock, those are, you know, not usually they don't really have affluent roots. Mainly like garages, you know, low income people, and I think that Richmond is very divided in the sense of wealth and
very much.
So I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah, and I think like another reason why it could be also is just because like Richmond has the ability, and like the suburbs do this too, and like a lot of America does this, where it can make us feel, and it encourages us actually to feel as if like where we are and our world, our environment is the only world that exists. Um, so like if you go to the University of Richmond, it's hard to imagine that like people genuinely listen to like Aphex Twin, like unironically, and find it great. Like when I first listened to Death Grips, for example, like I told my friends, I was like, oh, like that music was like scary. That was like like nobody enjoys it, but like it made me feel like scared, kind of like watching a horror movie. And I was like, oh, like it was so scary. My friends were like you don't get it, like you like,
Yeah.
because like genuinely, like I listen to it now and I'm like, oh, this is good. Like I'm dancing to this and like I'm vibing with it. Like I think that's like an example where it's like it was hard for me at that moment to imagine like a world where people, or like just like a place where like people could listen to something like that could just be like straight up noise and like actually enjoy it and find rhythm behind it. And like I don't know, Richmond, the University of Richmond definitely pretends like, oh, like everybody loves like Wonderwall, like everyone loves like Red Hot Chili Peppers, like you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Um, and like also it's like everyone who's like I think like I don't know, I can address like Greek life in lieu as well, because I think that like that also has a play into it. Like Richmond, University of Richmond's culture definitely revolves around like Greek life in a sense.
Yeah.
And so like if people aren't willing to step outside of that, which I don't think a lot of people are, because like Greek life is intense here. Like it is like something that I think a lot of people place in like a priority for them. Like it gets them to do things. It gets them to do things with friends. Like it is something that's like big in the city, or big in like the university. And as such, I think like it's hard for people sometimes to like I don't, I played like the Garden song in like one of my classes, kind of like as I was like, oh, like you want to hear what I like, and they're like, yeah, I want to hear what you like, I want to hear what you like. And some people are open to listening, but like some people also like I played like the first like 10 seconds of like Sneaky Devil by the Garden, and I was like, okay, this is like terrible, and I was like, that's fine, you know, it's cool, like, I get it, like it's like. I've sort of another thing is like I've come into conversations, like, especially when I was in the UK, because I've been taught that like, okay, like my music taste is like weird and like not normal, and like also like people don't enjoy it. So I've been kind of taught to like go into certain spaces and like preface it like, oh, my music is like intense, because like I've had people literally tell me like, oh, like this like literally just makes me want to vomit, or like this like genuinely makes me sick, and I'm like, oh, and I think they're being serious. Like I think that they're honestly being like, I can't listen to this because like for one reason or another I just can't, like it's like it's violent to them. And I'm not saying that can't be true, but like so I preface that when going to the UK.
Yeah.
And like even like talking to my friends from home, and they've been like, what do you mean, like this is awesome, like this is great, and I'm like, oh, like really, like people like this stuff. And then I can actually feel like, oh, like I'm actually building a community around it here. And that definitely made me like feel more comfortable bringing my music taste into into my personality a little bit more. Like since coming back to Richmond, like I feel like I've changed a lot, and one of the reasons is because like I was able to like find that like people like alternative music, people like glitchcore, people like queer music, people like AJ Cook, Dorian Electra, 100 Gex, Patricia Taxon. People like those artists, just not here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like I feel like I could go on like all the reasons why, but like genuinely, it's just like the culture here doesn't really support one that investigates people's identities, and like one that encourages people to step outside of their comfort zone and talk to people that they normally wouldn't talk to. And see them in like a light that's like, oh, like keep an open mind when you're talking to these people. It's one that doesn't do that, and so because of that, like a lot of people tend to just dismiss type of stuff. Yeah, okay, I think
so.
That's it. Yeah.
You're talking about how you don't really feel like you fit into the culture of UR musically. So when you have your radio show, are you kind of tapping more into the city than you are into our campus? Or are you trying to expand the city into the campus?
Well, actually, so it's funny because I don't really think I came into this with like that intention in mind. I definitely came into the radio show with like I just want like my friends to listen to it,
Yeah.
to like hear the music I've been listening to, and like I have a friend from abroad who I was really close with, and he has a radio show at the place I studied abroad at, and like him and his friend like had like just like the goofiest stuff, and like they're both like literature students, like they both just like talk about songs with like just big fancy words and like express their feelings about music and stuff like that on the radio show, and it was just like cool to listen to. And also made it to where like I come back here and I'm like oh I listen to it. I listen to his show, and I'm also like now I come back and I'm like, and I have all my friends from study abroad, and I'm just like, oh, like well, you can still keep in touch with me by like listening to my radio show and like talking about music.
Yeah.
And so like I posted on my Instagram, and like a lot of my friends from abroad like talk to me about it, and like we sort of, and then also like again like it's also been interesting because like it's also been like the people who I have like who I do have on Instagram. It's also like reconnected me with like old friends from like middle and high school who I haven't talked to in like years, and they've been like, oh, like I love that artist. Like I have a couple friends who like do music now and like have bands, and like they've been like, oh, like you should like recommend us and stuff like that. And like Kids at Play is like they went to my high school. I'm not sure if you know them, but
yeah. When I was looking at your radio show, I saw that you had a lot of local artists.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that because
Yeah.
you know you're kind of talking about how you feel like the university campus doesn't integrate the city well, and I feel like I saw that in your show.
Yeah.
So, do you have a specific motivation behind putting local artists in? Is it just because they're friends, or?
Well, genuinely because I think the music's good. Like I think McKinley Dixon is like genuinely incredible. Like I think the fact that he got like top 53 on like the Rolling Stones albums, I'm like, you could have done better. Like
Yeah.
like but like he's like a small like local artist here, and I've been trying to play like a lot more of him. I think like my motivation definitely is just like introducing new music to different people, and like also kind of just like flex, like be like, oh, like look at how involved I am with my community, and look at how cool I am. Like there's like definitely a bit of like selfish like intent behind it, but I also think it's just cool to promote art and like not overthink it. Like I think it's cool just to like think about and engage with art and like allow like feelings and thoughts just to like sort of like run rampant. And also like I enjoy rambling, and so like it's just because like the whole entire reason why we started the radio show is just because like it's fun, but also like people should it does engage people, like it does have a conversation, and like with that conversation in mind, we're like, oh, like we should like promote local artists, I guess, but like that's never gonna stop us from having fun. Like we're not going into this like a job. We're just more like, oh, like what are we listening to? What do we enjoy? What do we feel cool playing?
Yeah.
And then like the local artists sort of come out of that and stuff. But yeah, like I think like a lot of like one of my friends reached out to me recently and was like, hey, like we like me and my friends, we have this band that we just started, and like you should play them on the radio because like we're raising money right now for like Palestine, and also for like the things that happened at Monroe Park not too long ago, and so yeah, like I was like, oh, that's like something I can get behind. That's something like, that's a good level of community engagement. Like I support this cause, and so I'm like, okay, like I'll definitely like feature y'all, and that's something I'll definitely play. I haven't got around to doing it yet, but like that's something that I do want to get into, like definitely like for my last show this semester, hopefully next Tuesday, or something like that. But yeah, I mean, like it's just been sort of, I don't think we have like an intention going into the show besides just like having fun and like doing what feels right. Like we don't really overthink it. So
basically it's just the local artists happen to align with your personal tastes and moral values. It's not something you're setting out to do. It's just happenstance.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, very much. I would say happy stance. It's very much happy stance. It is though. It is like, but yeah, I guess that's the gist. Yeah.
Yeah. So, why WDCE. Why do you feel like WDCE kind of is the place for you to express all of these ideas and feelings you have about music?
Well, that's a good question. So like, I think the biggest reason why WDCE was one because like it was available.
Yeah.
Like like Zach and I are college students and we still attend the University of Richmond and like we are still invested in the University of Richmond. Like we want to like make the University of Richmond better. And we want to make like we want to cultivate a community on our campus that's like more accepting and more open to like different ideas. Like, and Richmond is definitely like the University of Richmond has like definitely gone that way.
Yeah.
Like we have made steps, although marginally so, but like Charles Stanley graduated from the school and like is one of our biggest alumni and he's like a television pastor. Like that's like one of our most notable alumni. And like most of our most notable alumni are like people who've like done terrible things and like that could only be possible in like exclusively white spaces. And I'm not saying that Charles Stanley is like a terrible person. I don't really know much about him, but like I know that like sometimes his opinions can hurt people and hurt people of different ideologies. And his job is to cultivate a culture that is like rooted in white values. And I don't think that's wrong. I think it just needs to be talked about. Like we just need to like have an honest conversation about it. Maybe like I don't know, debate whether that's actually something that we want to establish on campus. But I think that like why WDCE comes back to the point like one, it's available, but also because like I feel as if Zach and I are able to. Well, Zach and I also definitely hoped on like okay, like finding people who would be like a little bit more interested in like hearing the things that we were interested in. And again, like, because it's fun to be like the odd one out. Like it's fun just to, and like maybe there are people at WDC who do play the same music as us.
Yeah.
We just don't know it yet. And maybe there's people at Richmond who like genuinely listen. Like I think there actually are. Like there was somebody like walking around with like a Shin Guard shirt earlier on in the semester, and I was like, oh, like that's a screamo band. Like that's like a niche screamo. Like they're not like a big deal. Like you're like, oh, it's like really cool. But, like I don't know who they are. I haven't talked to them. But like they seem. I was like, oh, like but like. So I don't know. Like it's also like why WDC comes down to like when it was made available for us, but also it's like hopefully we can like develop a community in WDC that like maybe revolves a little bit more around like hard rock, emo / like post-punk stuff as well. Yeah, that's my answer. And also they're pretty accepting. Like they're all pretty fun. They're funny people. Like genuinely, WDC actually is like they're a cool crowd. Like they're funny. Like like it's actually kind of cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when looking at the history of WDCE, I mean, at least currently, it's a lot of alternative music, not necessarily what you're talking about, but you know, a lot of like socially conscious music. Like I think there's like it's like called the B-side, the socially conscious. I think like Black Culture Channel that plays like R&B, hip hop, and you know, there's a lot of indie groups and stuff and everything. So, do you find WDCE to be accepting for you personally? Like, what do you think about their programming and how open or accessible it is?
It's genuinely, I think it's really good and really great. And like, I never felt anything but included in WDCE. Like shout out Liv, but like Liv like made like a graphic for Zach and I. Like Zach and I didn't even know that this was happening, and like Liv made a graphic for us and like posted it on the WDCE Instagram, and we were like, that's awesome, that's so cool. And like they've been nothing but like engaged in conversations, and it seems like people on the radio station really want to do things for like change and like really want to like be people who are involved in like cultivating an awesome community. And I think that WDC can be that. And I think like this year especially, from what Zach told me, like WDC was very lackluster. When like we came in freshman and sophomore year, it's like a lot has changed, it looks like, and a lot has like grown and developed, and like we almost have like a full itinerary now for like student radio, which is like Zach was like, I don't think that was like possible. I didn't like. It's like it's quite incredible. I think it's great. It's also great because like we also have people listening to us, which is like that's awesome too. So yeah, I again like I think of like people like I think like yeah, it's just been like a community that's like been really accepting and like really open, and like I think they're all like cool people. I have nothing but positive things to say, at least from like the interactions that I've had with them. So yeah, I don't know if that's like really what your question is getting at, or if
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. Okay.
Oh my gosh. So, oh my gosh. One second, I'm gonna pause the video. Okay, so how do you think, you talked a lot about how much WDCE has changed and is kind of opening up to students. How do you think this is impacting students or just impacting the community at large?
Yeah, I think it's cool. Like, I don't know if it's something with like the next generation in general, or like I don't know if it's like what Richmond's hiring decisions have looked like, or like what it is, but like there definitely is like a lot more like alternative vibes.
Yeah.
And like I see that a lot at the radio station. Like people who are like interested in art and and interested in like different identities, and also like people who are like, I don't know, like again, like I don't think I've interacted with any of them on like a super serious level. But like conversationally and like overall like first impression, they seem like they've been people who are like accepting and like interested in me, and like and that they've also been like people who are like accepting in general. Sorry, I'm just revisiting your question.
Yeah.
I think I think like a big part of that could just be like one, because of like maybe the directors, like because I know that like the people who are directing or like head of the board right now are like people who've been involved for a while, and I know they've made big efforts to like promote the radio show, especially like the Spider Fair, and like I think the population of students, especially coming out of COVID, is like one where like we could definitely be like, oh, like there's this radio show thing that's happening, and it is like really cool, and if like you're into music and you can just play it, it doesn't have to be like stressful, and it does allow like community to be built at Richmond around music, which just like wasn't a thing that really I think happened before now. Like I think like Zach and I still definitely struggle with like as we've said, like we do definitely struggle with like finding people who have similar interest with us in like music and like film and like video games and like even like comics or like books. Like it's like, and like a lot of our friend group also kind of struggles with that. Like I know Henry like has like expressed like very niche interest, and like there isn't like a film club that sort of expresses the sort of like nuance that like Henry's looking for, like so like it's not, but also it's just like it's not that like, because I think I do get in the habit of like talking about like it's like, oh, we're just like our music taste is just better, or like our like it's not that, it's just that it's different, and like what we like are like things that maybe most people at Richmond don't really find that appealing. So yeah, and even like in our like even like with people who like share our identities, like I think like for example, like I'm not like a big Melanie Martinez fan. Like I don't like them.
Yeah.
Which like for a lot of people, because like I am in like queer spaces and like neurodivergent spaces, they're like, oh, like what? Yeah. Like, I don't want to go into like why I don't like Melanie Martinez right now, but like that's like that even happens in like the spaces where I feel like my identities are promoted and are secure and are safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I think like WDCE is like it is building because one, an opportunity for building community is present, and I think that like the freshman class are people who are interested in that, because I think interest in music has developed, especially with the age of streaming. As bad as it is, it's also cool because it's also bringing people to music, but it also is like scamming artists, and like yeah, it's also like a terrible business model, but like yeah, ethically, but like it's like so good in the fact that like we're getting people to listen to music and getting people to care about music, and getting people to like form community around music too. But like again, I don't think many people at Richmond are really as involved into like the Richmond local scene. Like a lot of my connections to the Richmond local scene are just because like I have friends who are musicians from high school. So like besides that, I don't know anything. I don't know Like I just found out about like DJ Harrison like recently, who's like apparently like one of the biggest artists coming out of Richmond, like produced for a really big band that I forgot, but like I went to like Vinyl Conflict. It was like the Vinyl Conflict recently, and I was talking to them, and they were like, oh, like well like we have like a DJ Harrison like record, and I was like, who's that? Like, like
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, you don't know DJ like, and they put me on. It was great, but yeah, I don't know. I think that's like WDC. Like I think could expand in that way. It's like like maybe being more in tune and more in touch with like the Richmond community and like maybe like looking out for like more local artists. But I do think that like if we're not pushing ourselves to explore that, and like if we don't have people who like are pushing themselves to like explore that side of Richmond, then like it's not gonna happen. And I mean like also like Richmond is a rigorous school. Like the University of Richmond is like it's like a hard school, and so like we don't have a lot of the flexibility that like maybe like we would have to like explore the Richmond scene in full without easy access. Like I'm blessed in the fact that like I have friends from high school who I can literally just text and they can be like, oh, like I'm working on this, like oh here are the lyrics for this, or here's a song that I think you'd like to play, or like here's a house show, or like something like that. Like it's so yeah, I don't know.
You have access to the community by being from the community.
Exactly. Yeah. Where like other people would take a lot more effort, I imagine. Like, and a lot more like venturing into like VCU.
Yeah.
And a lot like again like I think a lot of students like if you're coming to Richmond more often than not you are like wealthy and white and like a large portion of the world like you are secluded from. Like I don't expect someone to come from like I don't know like wealthy Ohio to like be able to come here and immediately get involved into like the Richmond scene and like scour the like I'm not expecting that of you. I'm not like I'm not even expecting like anybody to really do that, but like I think that would be cool if we could. Yeah.
Just out of general curiosity, how do you think we could do that? Like how like what as someone from the Richmond community, what do you imagine either the university or just the community, Richmond TM, kind of doing to really branch out and try to get more people involved in the scene? Or is that even something you want? Like, what is your ideal plan of like what Richmond, in any way you perceive it to be, can do?
I think that like a big part of that is also like because I know like different DJs at WDC. Like I think Blacklick, I think that's his name, but like he's like a hip hop like enthusiast at the University of Richmond. He has a radio station here, but like I think reaching out to different sort of like venues, especially reaching out to different sort of like musical figures at Richmond in general, and like speaking to different recording labels at Richmond too, because like there are student-led projects and there are like independent projects that are being done in Richmond that are just hard to find. I think so. Like one of the things that like WDC can do first is like it can grow and it can get comfortable with itself. It can find its audience, and I think like maybe also like I think it can like engage more in conversation with like different artists and different people who are involved in like the Richmond local scene, which like comes from being involved in like being involved in like music in general, but also comes from like being involved with like different sort of like music directors and like artists in general, which is like again I think it's hard, but I think the best way to do that is just generally just like being open to it and like using our connections, which like
being intentional.
And we are like a business school, so like I don't know, like you can meet people like like genuinely like I think that's like I don't know, like that is possible. So yeah,
and I mean we have had like really big artists coming like that have performed at, or I guess for WDCE before, like Fugazi,
which is like
Death
awesome.
Like Death Cab for Cutie, like Master Ace, but all of those groups are not from Richmond, and I think Fugazi is from DC, but that's not really Richmond, so I kind of agree that more effort could be made for it.
But I also think like we don't really like Richmond doesn't really have any like huge name artists
Lucy Dacus?
Yeah, Lucy Dacus is like one. I'm thinking like McKinley Dixon. I'm thinking, well, McKinley Dixon's like someone who like blew up kind of recently. Like DJ Harrison's like again like one that I knew about recently. But like besides that, it's like D'Angelo like from like way long ago. Like that's like probably the biggest name I think Richmond's probably come out with. But that's because I'm more involved in like the hip hop scene, I guess. But like it's interesting because like a lot of the Richmond community is like grassroots, like low key. Like we don't have like a big recording label. I don't think in Richmond. Like we have like student led stuff, and we have like kids at VCU are like doing stuff that like are interesting and are cool. That we could like look at and talk to. People at like the community college level are also making really cool music. But like the idea of like the University of Richmond at this current point in time, like reaching out to like other universities of like community college level or something like that is like still like I feel that they would be weirded out by that, but I do think that that's like where music is happening right now.
Yeah.
In like those smaller communities, and those more niche areas, but yeah, I don't know. But like there are musicians. There's also I'm forgetting, it's a singer-songwriter, I forget her name, but like there are musicians who have come out from Richmond who like are doing bigger things, but like from what I understand it's like it's very temporary that like a musician from Richmond comes up, and like from what I've seen is like the majority of them like end up moving to like Nashville or something like that, because that's technically where a lot more opportunities present itself for music, and especially coming from Richmond. But I could be wrong about that, and I could just not be in the know. Yeah. But that's the kind of the vibe that I get. So yeah.
So I kind of want to get more into a point you just made about talking about, like there's a lot of college kids doing music, whether it be here, community college, VCU. So what do you think the role that young people play in the Richmond music scene is? Like how do young people fit into Richmond in your experience?
Yeah. If I'm gonna be honest, again, like my engagement with music is like very much a hobbyist. Like I haven't like made intentional effort to like investigate the community or like scour anything. But like from what I understand, and maybe just because like this is what my friends do, it's like a large portion of what they do is like with other young people, with friends from like university, with friends from school or high school, like people that they meet that they're interested in starting a band and interested in music, and so like they start journaling on that path because like that's just where they see their future and that's what they want. And that is to say that like I feel like Richmond, like the city of Richmond, is like really weird because like the adults here are like, I don't think that they understand that like sometimes I get this vibe from like the older people in Richmond that like they're not like they don't understand that it's a city.
Yeah.
Like because it's a baby city. It's a tiny city. But like also like at the same time though, there are like lots of stores that have opened up recently. Like Vinyl Conflict opened up in the last 7 years. Cut and Run opened up recently. That like is cultivating, and these are our adults. These are people who are like are not college students who maybe got a degree, who maybe went to VCU, but like people who are starting like stores and like are cultivating communities around artists and like music and like that are deeply invested in the community here and like cultivating it. Like I've talked to people at Vinyl Conflict, I've talked to people at Deep Groove, like I've talked to people even Plan 9, and like you sent me like the store recently that I want to check out soon. I forgot what it was called. But
Small Friends.
Like, but these are people who are using like social media and also like being just genuinely cool people to talk to and hang out with, and just being like people who earnestly are invested in music. And like I never feel like I'm bothering people at Vinyl Conflict, like the couple that works there, by being like, oh, like, do you have this artist? Do you have this artist? Do you have this? Or like tell me about like what are your thoughts on this artist? Because like they're genuinely interested in it and they're genuinely invested into it, like regardless of whether I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't feel like I'm being exploited, and it feels like they are, and because like they host like different sort of art shows, they host like, it's like I'm like, oh, okay, because I do think I keep going in like tangents, but like your question was like how do I like the motivation of the young people, and I'm saying like, oh, like that's there, but also like
Yeah.
there are spaces that I think like, okay, yeah, this is another thing, okay, like I think streaming has done a lot to music that has kind of, ooh, this is sad. But I think that like you do get into a trap with streaming that like it's all you need and it's all you want. It's like a lot of people, like Zach and I definitely struggle with this, I think, where like we were exposed to music from streaming at least. It wasn't until recently that we realized like, oh, we can cultivate community through like going into record stores, buying CDs, talking to people there, and like it sucks that like it's a transactional space. Like if you go into like a record store, like they're going to expect you to like pay them. Like they want money. Like
they need
it.
to make a living.
Exactly. Like, but I do think it's like that is a space that if you're listening to music, you should try to invest into going to like different sort of vinyl shops. You should try to go into different sort of like, you should try to support local businesses. You should try to like, even like thrift stores. Like you'll find things at thrift stores, and you'll talk to people at thrift stores, and like you'll, like it's like again like it's like, oh, like I wish there was more. Like I wish there was like a bigger cafe scene in Richmond, because I think that could be like a really cool space. But like,
yeah.
Okay, to be fair though, like Kids at Play have performed at cafes. Like McKinley Dixon has performed at different cafes. Like there are places where things are happening. It's just like getting into the loop and knowing when is like you have to put in effort.
Yeah.
Like you would have to want to be like, you have to want to go into Vinyl Conflict and like engage with records. You have to want to go into these types of places and like talk to people. I don't think like the northern or like mainly western individualist attitude of like walking around and keeping to yourself really works in Richmond, because like you need to have to talk to people and like be respectful and be kind. And like I'm really happy that like, because I do think that one of the reasons why I genuinely love Richmond is because like rarely ever have I ever been kind to someone and like them disregarded me, like, and not tried to return that same energy. Like
Yeah.
people here are so nice, like at least from my experience, but like except when they drive, like Richmond drivers are the worst. But yeah,
That's
like
fair.
I think like conversationally, if you're like open to having that sort of stuff, and if you're open to like talking to like people of like marginalized identities and people from like lower like socioeconomic classes and people of like queer identity or people of like alternative, like I don't know, like I just think like a queer identity in general, like if you are someone who's open to talking to people like that, you will find communities, and you will find, because these are people who like need communities in order to survive.
Yeah.
So it's like you will find those spaces as long as you're respectful of it. Actually, yeah, I want to return to that other question earlier. Like, one of the things that WDC can do to like grow is like reach out to stores like Final Conflict and just reach out to those spaces that do occupy a certain niche, but also have a community behind it, and like promote alongside them. Like Friday Firsts, like are like a really cool opportunity to like explore music and explore the Richmond community in general, and like explore its like shops. And like even like this past like local business Saturday was like this like after Black Friday, and that was like tons of stuff was happening. Like you go to the tech exchange, you talk to them, they give you recommendations to go check out Vinyl Conflict because they're also having a sale. You get the recommendations to go check out like a different jewelry spot, like a different thrift store. Like you are like these businesses are connected to each other, and they are willing to like engage in conversation, and they are deeply invested in their interests, and they want other people, they want to cultivate a community, and they are open to that. So like I think it's just a matter of like, I think an easy point of access is the local businesses.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think starting there is good.
So basically, just a quick synopsis to make sure I have everything kind of organized in my head. You think that the importance that like college students and people, whether at our university or like really any college kid city community, is that it's like a launching pad basically. It's like a starting point for getting involved in music. But the important thing about music is first finding it and then engaging in it within the community.
Exactly.
So finding it, engaging, and then going out.
Yeah.
And you talked about how WDCE can improve. But do you, like, kind of going into that a little bit more, how do you see WDCE kind of going from the radio, on air, on the web, wherever, and then into Richmond? Like, how do you think WDCE is currently creating that connection from radio, from like listening to actually in the city? Or like, what else do you think they can do? Like, how do you see that link?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like. So I think that what you're asking me is like, what can WDCE do to, like, get invested into like are you asking like how they can reach out? Or are you asking
Or
me like
do you see them doing that? Like, do you see that as a direction the radio's going into? Or how do you think they can do that? Like, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but more about like, how do we go from the radio to the city?
Yeah, that's a good question. One is, I think we need like less schoolwork. Like genuinely, I don't know why I don't know why Richmond is like so hard. Like genuinely, we do not need to be doing this much work. Like everybody that I've talked to, even like at like Harvard and Yale, I've been like, we're not doing that much, and I'm like, like cool, like
cool.
What? Yeah, like thank you, but like why? Like we genuinely like I think like Richmond does have a philosophy. Like after talking to people at like different schools and like that like is just like you're gonna do all your work and you're gonna like enjoy it and like you're gonna like and like that does destroy extracurriculars from flourishing. Like like bro, like I have friends doing like Yale radio and like bro, like the host has like Anthony Fantano's phone number and they talk regularly and I'm like that's possible when you like don't overwhelm your students with like an absurd amount of work and like when you are invested into like the students developing extracurriculars and like pursuing things that they're passionate about, that is possible. It's just that I feel like Richmond has like the mentality of like if all you're doing is work, then you're getting better, and you're learning, which isn't necessarily the case. Like I think like first and foremost, the priority of the university is to learn how to cultivate community, and like learn how to like grow within the community, and also it's like to learn how to talk to people, and like form connections, and like learn how to like keep a schedule, learn how to organize your life, learn how to like be independent. But like I don't think that the job of the university is to like commit so much information to memory because like, it kind of just feels like we're doing that right now. And like I genuinely just think that like I think that in order like I think that like we either need to have someone who's like all they do is radio, or like someone who's like if a music director does come onto staff, like that we need to have them as people who are like ready to engage with the community.
Yeah, and how do you think we should get that information out there? Like, because yes, we have someone who engages in the community, but how do we spread that, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think just like conversation.
Yeah.
I think we underestimate the power of conversation, but like genuinely like talking to people, sharing ideas, like having ideas, like talking to people.
You do that through radio.
Yeah, exactly. You do that through radio, but like I think like I think that like there is lots of potential for like if we just keep the conversation going for like things to happen. So I don't know. Again, like I think that like we're in a really weird place right now where like COVID has stopped a lot of things from moving for a while, and like that has been rough, especially like as a senior who's like realizing that like I didn't get to do all the things that like the freshmen are doing now because of like COVID. But also it's like it's also optimistic because I'm like, oh, like what I couldn't do, like a lot of people are interested in and know about, and I can express those wishes and have it be like heard as well. It's like I genuinely do think that like if we promote the idea enough that people are excited and like people at WDC especially are like people who are excited to get involved in the community and want to do that. I think they would do that. So yeah, I guess that's the gist. But yeah, I think that like having conversations, keep continuously promoting it, I think it's gonna work out. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then just like one final kind of question. Do you have any information about your listener demographics? Like, do they tell, like, is there a way of knowing, like, who's tuning in?
There probably is. I just don't think that Zach and I have really explored it.
Yeah.
But I just get like people DMing me. It's like I have like
Yeah.
a rough idea. It's like a lot of my friends from like middle and high school that I haven't talked to in like ages. Apparently listen to a lot of the same music as me, which is fun.
Yeah.
So like, and like a lot like because I also listened to like a lot of post punk. Like I went to the UK for a full year.
Yeah.
And like post punk is like huge there. Like, it's like really like Black Country New Roads, now Maruha, Black Midi. Like all of these people are like really big post punk artists who are doing lots of things. And like math rock too is like really big over there. But like I think that like no, I forgot what was your question again?
Just like, what do you think your listener demographics are, like, or do you know about them?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think I know anything about them besides like what my friends tell me.
So basically, people from the UK, and then people not necessarily from the university, but more of like the city.
Yeah, and there are people from Richmond who do listen to our radio show, listen to our radio show as well. Like I have like one of our closest friends, Henry, listens to our radio show, so like that's really cool.
So a good mix.
Yeah, it's good. It's a decent mix. It's fun. It's nice. It's cool. That's just
And final question: is there? Well, not actually a final question, but is there anything else that you feel like I didn't cover that you want to talk about a little bit, or any parting thoughts? It's okay if the answer is no.
I just genuinely just think that like, you know, like talking to people, finding people in person, like, you know, being honest and being like open and like being like chill.
Yeah.
And like communities will cultivate around that. So like I don't know.
Yeah. And by being chill, do you just mean like to any particular groups or just like as a person?
Just as a person.
Okay.
Like be open, be fun, be
Take
like
the 77.
Be excited about what you love.
Yeah.
And like I think things will come.
Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Say bye.
Bye.